A very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for making time and welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toivo Njabela. Tonight on the platform, I'm joined by Dr. Demus Makuwa. He is a senior advisor in the office of the Vice Chancellor of the International University of Management, and he is also in his own right an education expert of note. Thank you, Dr. Makuwa, for making time. I think the conversation that I want to have with you today is around the state of our teachers, our graduate teachers. Last week we had someone here, a representative of about 8,000 teachers who he says are unemployed. They're struggling to break into the system. And they had the various perspectives as to how that came about. You have been in the education sector for so long. You've worked in Paris, I think, France? UNESCO, yes. Also, which is an education institution itself. But in your own assessment, having looked at this situation for some time now, where did this pile up of teachers, unemployed teachers, come from in your view?
Thank you so much, Toivo. First and foremost, let me take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of IUM management and the founder of IUM and chairman of the governing council.
Yes.
So I am advisor in the office of the IUM chairman and of the governing and founder of governing council.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the vice chancellor.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Thank you.
And then secondly, also to thank your media house for creating an opportunity like this where different people from different walks of life could meet with you and engage and discuss serious issues of national interest. So my sincere thanks on behalf of IUM management and on my own behalf.
Wonderful.
Now back to your question. How did we come to where we are now? I think, Toivo, to answer that question in one or two sentences will not be doing justice.
Yeah.
There is a background involving various perspectives.
Yeah.
First and foremost, the historical perspective, which in a nutshell refers to the huge backlog in the provision of nearly all educational inputs at the dawn of independence. And then secondly, policy positions of the government and of the Ministry of Education, and some slight shifts or variation here and there. And then thirdly, there was no need for me to go into all these details, but then thirdly, I think it's one should also understand the socio-economic development of our country, our region, and globally. All these factors have had a bearing on the current situation where we are now in terms of the education sector, provision of inputs, and teachers is just one of those inputs to the into education. Toivo, at the backstage of all this are several important deliberations from the educational sector, starting with the broad policy of our government to provide free education.
Yeah.
Along, as we started in 1990, along came a number of challenges and problems that were identified. There was a major review of the entire education and training sector around 1998, 1999, thereabout, which culminated in the Presidential Commission report on education and training and culture. That was followed by other reviews and other deliberations. The 2011 recommendation for the Educational Conference, and of course several other broad backstage on which the things that are happening now can be viewed at. Specifically to your question now, at a time of independence between 1990 up to about 2013, 15 or something, there was, because of the backlog, there was a great demand for teachers.
Yeah, so a backlog in that regard is a backlog of unfilled vacancies, a backlog of unemployed teachers. What backlog are you referring to here?
Backlog of, in terms of a mismatch between the availability of schools and accessibility of the schools to the learners inequitably in all corners of the country. So you talk about schools, classrooms, teaching materials, and so teachers become just one of those major resources within the mixture of this educational pot. So there were backlogs in all those. In teachers in particular, the backlog was in the sense of lack of qualified or trained teachers. And when we talk of lack of trained teachers, we classify them as academically unqualified and professionally unqualified. Academically qualified in the sense that somebody who did standard 2 or standard 4 is asked to teach grade 10. Okay. Professionally unqualified in the sense that anyone who did maybe grade 10 or grade 12 or so, or a degree, was put in the classroom to teach. The desired goal of the education sector was to have appropriately qualified teachers to teach the various subjects and at the various phases of the education system.
So, because what happened, Doctor, there is that, and I like saying this a lot, maybe my viewers are even tired of me saying this, but you know, I left university 2006, and around that time, anybody who came out of university with a degree in education, they were immediately absorbed by the system. Similar to nurses. Now you have those two groups, and today we are addressing teachers, of course, but today those two groups are on the streets. As we were told by the young men last week here, 8,000 of them from the education side of things are unemployed. That happened exponentially, that so many of them are unemployed. And even if you contemplate the ideas that have been put around to say, look, this is how we are going to resolve the problems, 8,000 people are just too many to absorb in a system, because the government probably, I'm told they take around maximum 2,000 a year or something like that. So how did these numbers pile up like that?
Thank you so much, Toivo, for that question. Very interesting and pertinent question. The demand for teachers, it is something that is can be manipulated by policy. First and foremost, from the theory and practice of educational planning, you don't plan, you don't start your planning by just focusing on the teachers. You start the planning by focusing on the learners. The learner as the unit of analysis. And then the learners that you have at that particular given time, an analysis of the national population demographics, an assessment or an analysis of the annual rate or percentage of population increase. So you can make projections that in 2030, the system will be having so many learners. The learners are determined by the age group, the school-going age group, which in our case is 7 to 18. Because of policy changes, or then mainstreaming of pre-primary, it's now 5-6-year-olds to to about 18, ideally. But because of some overage learners, it goes up to maybe 20 or 19, 20, still in the basic education system. So, ideally, as the population increases, as the number of learners increases, so should the number of schools, the number of classrooms, and the number of teachers also increase to correspond to these figures. In our case, if it's done like that, you might then end up with a situation where because of a large increase in population, you cannot afford. The national economy cannot afford to support, to pay for all the resources, including teachers.
Yeah.
So education authorities brought in what was known as staffing norms, and teacher-learner ratios or learner-teacher ratios derived from those staffing norms. What that means is that you manipulate the system in order to control or to maintain or to manage the supply and demand of teachers. So the current unemployment of a large number of teachers, as we have alluded to, was something that has been coming along the way because of rather conservative learner-teacher ratios. The learner-teacher ratios implemented by the Ministry of Education do not reflect the reality. I'm sorry to indicate that even the current official learner-teacher ratios are not even followed by the ministry itself, because we have classrooms and classes in some northern region where you have anything between 30 or 40 to as much as 50, 60, 70, even 80 learners in a class. Okay, so
and the official ratio is about 27, 28?
It is, it goes according to the phases. At the pre-primary, it's about 20 or 25 learners per teacher. At the lower primary and so forth, something like 30, 35. And then at the secondary, also around that much, 30 to 35. Which means that in terms of educational planning, the schools or the system cannot absorb more teachers to meet the real needs. But this staffing norm, the calculations behind that is the cost. Okay, so many teachers, if you establish these are the norms, so you will be, and these are the learners, you will be able to employ so many teachers, and the wage bill will be so much. Okay, but then if the number of learners is increasing and the teacher-learner ratio on which you're basing your budgeting remains static, then there will be a mismatch. So we have got a current mismatch where there are so many students, the learner-teacher ratio becomes meaningless, because then there are so many learners who require so many teachers, but the teachers can't be employed because the budget may not allow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the side effect of that is you compromise on the quality of education.
Absolutely. We go for a quick break and then return with Dr. Demus Makuwa. The conversation continues on the evening review. Now, Dr. Makuwa, what role are the universities like IUM playing in making sure that, given the reality that we have on the ground, that you don't become complicit in producing this mass graduate teachers, knowing very well that the likelihood of them getting jobs is very limited? Because I'm asking this because if someone has graduated from IUM with an education diploma or degree and they're not getting jobs, it could just be misconstrued by an ordinary average person that IUM graduates are not getting jobs because maybe their qualifications are not as good enough, while in fact the problem is much broader and it stretches beyond IUM. Why our universities seem to be taking in so many people into these teachers programs, knowing that they will struggle in the market?
Again, thank you so much, Toivo, for that question. Let me start by reminding you and the viewers or listeners that first and foremost, IUM training programs are demand-driven. We conduct an analysis of market locally and internationally, so the graduates or the students that are being that enroll at IUM are enrolled in programs for which there is demand. And IUM's main area of specialization for many years was information communication technology, management sciences, and IUM was a pace setter in many areas. We were the first to introduce programs in HIV and AIDS management, for example. And not too long ago, we introduced some programs in international relations, diplomacy and management. And we are still producing more demand-driven programs, especially also relating to environmental studies and sustainable tourism, given that Namibia has got a very fragile ecosystem. And these are in line with, I said, local, international, and global demands like the Sustainable Development Goals. IUM began developing programs for teacher training between 2016 to 2018. And this was on demand. It was a demand from the Ministry of Education. It was on demand, some of the management courses. It was on demand from the teacher unions, officials in the education, in the regions. And then we did our own analysis. We engaged experts in the Ministry of Education, from the National Institute for Educational Development, NIED, to make sure that then we develop teacher training programs that will speak to the new basic education curriculum. Everyone else was still training teachers based on the old basic education curriculum. So it was need-based, it was demand-driven. We were asked to respond to that demand, and the first teacher graduates from IUM, I think, graduated in 2020 or 2021. If they started in 2018, 19, 20, the diploma ones, and then the bachelor honors one in 2021. So we haven't been in the business of producing teachers for a long time. Secondly, IUM does not only train for Namibia or for the Ministry of Education. We train globally. All our students are trained not only for the Namibian labor market, but internationally. Internationally in the sense that it's the whole of SADC and the global world at large. And for your information, some of our teachers are on demand in some European countries. One particular European country. I would not like to expose our stakeholders here and there, but then yes, there's a demand for our teachers, pre-primary teachers, by one European country where we are already sending our teachers, and of course in the region. Lastly, all our graduates also go through a program of entrepreneurship, with a view that they will be more marketable, more flexible, not just depend in one field, and then they could also, those who are innovative and have got the necessary support, can be self-employed or create employment for others. So, Toivo, we sympathize with the large number of graduate teachers who are not getting employment in their education sector. But the problem is not overproduction. The problem is not oversupply of teachers. The problem, as I had indicated earlier, is somewhere else. Okay, shifting the scales in order to get only what you can, not what you need, not what the nation needs, but what is affordable, and then putting the rest aside. So that is an issue that has got to be looked at by all the stakeholders in the country, because it's in the best interest of our country. It's in the best interest of our philosophy, national philosophy of developing the human capital.
Yeah. Let me put the last question to you. We have 1 minute left, Doctor. So the unemployed graduate teachers, as represented on the show last week, they were talking about reducing intakes and all of that. And you seem to suggest that, look, the country actually needs teachers. Even those that are on the streets are actually needed.
Yes.
There's simply structural issues that are impeding their movement into that space. So maybe just for clarity and in finality, Doctor, what are the solutions? What are the immediate solutions to this issue? Because we can't be talking about this thing year in, year out.
Thank you so much, Toivo. That's $1 million question. There are various, there's no quick fix, there's no one bullet fix all, but there are various scenarios. At the very minimum, you saw the other day our population census, and we have got more than, I think, more than 800,000 learners in the school system. Soon it will be about 1 million. Okay, so there is overcrowding in schools.
Yeah.
So one way in which the education authorities can try to manage this problem is to make adjustments to the learner-teacher ratios. That's number one. Number two is to try the possibilities, because 80 learners in a class, you can divide that into 3 or 4 classes of 25 or 30 each. Okay, but then to expand education requires more resources, more schools, more classrooms, and so forth.
Yes.
But you can still use the same schools and apply what in some countries they call double shift training. So some learners will come in the morning, and then some other learners will come in the afternoon. So you will have 2 sets of teachers, those who teach the morning session and those who teach the afternoon session. That is just one of the short ways in which you can accommodate the learners, first of all, because the main focus is the learners. And in order to have the individual learners, the teachers provide individual attention to each learner as per our educational philosophy, and then maintain and improve the quality. The current status quo is not desirable.
Absolutely. Dr. Makuwa, I wish we could talk for longer, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, that's Dr. Demus Makuwa. He's a senior advisor at the International University of Management. Thank you for watching.